This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good. Again, I apologize for the delay, some computer issues, but let's get started right away. So the topic today is rainbows. And we'll see the psukim very shortly. We read in Parshat Noach that the rainbow is the sign from God that destruction could have, should have, would have come. However, because of the promise, the covenant that he made with Noach, then the destruction does not come. And many of us read that and we say, silly Rabbi, silly Rabbi, we know that rainbows come from the refraction of the sunlight through the water, through the misty air after a rainfall. That's what causes rainbows, not this old-fashioned superstitious covenant of God and Noach. So how do we, who are scientifically aligned, and we do understand the physical causes that present when a rainbow becomes visible, how do we understand that in terms, we who are scientifically literate and inclined, and also devout Orthodox Jews who accept the Torah as being divine, how do we balance these two ideas, these two concepts? And I would just preface with a concept that Rabbi Sachs Zatzal writes about often, and certainly in his book, To Heal a Fractured World, he discusses this, an excellent book. He says that people mistakenly think that science replaces religion. And he said science, of course, does not replace religion. Science does replace polytheism. Meaning polytheism it's the rain god, it's the snow god, it's the ocean god, it's the fish god, it's the wind god, it's the hurricane god. It's all of these different gods, forces that are at war with one another, battle with one another, and bring all these things about. And of course, through the plagues that Hashem and Moshe brought onto Egypt, specifically the plague of hail, which is where the hail, the hail and the fire coexisted. That was the point where Paro said, now I get it, right? Truly Hashem is the God. Truly Hashem is God, and I have sinned. So polytheism is all about all of these different forces, and science has replaced polytheism. We now understand we can predict weather to a certain degree, and we understand what causes the heat and the rain and the wind and the storms, etc., etc. Monotheism has nothing to do with that. Polytheism, science is all within the system. Monotheism, Hashem, God is beyond the system and is in control of setting in motion those scientific and physics elements that bring about these results. Whereas we understand the rains, but who brings about the situation where all of those factors will be present to bring the rain, or to bring a drought, or to bring a hurricane, or to bring a tsunami? That is what monotheism is. It's not what, it's not how, it's why, it is who. And that is a very, very fundamental difference in concept. With that in mind, the classic commentators did deal with the scientific knowledge of rainbows and sought to explain how that is in no way contradictory to what we have in our Torah. So let us begin with the psukim This is from, of course, Parshat Noach, Perek Tet, Pasuk, starting with Pasuk Yud Bet, chapter 9, verse 12. We have it both in Hebrew and in English on the screen that I'm sharing with you. Vayom Elokim, and Elokim said, Elokim, of course, we know is the name of God that connotes judgment. Zot ot habrit. This is the sign of the covenant. Asher ani notain beini uveinechem, that I'm placing between you, between myself and you, uvein kol nefesh chaya, and between all the living souls, asher itchem, that are with you, lidorot olam, for all generations. Et kashti natati be'anan, my rainbow, I have placed in the clouds. Vaitala ot brit, and it will serve as the sign of the covenant beini uvein haaretz, between me, God says, and the land. Vahaya, and it will be. Va'anani anan ala aretz, when I cause clouds to come upon the earth. V'nirata keshet ba'anan, the rainbow will appear in the cloud. V'zacharti et briti, I will remember the covenant. Asher beini uveinechem, between me and you. Uvein kol nefesh chaya, and between all the living creatures. B'chol basar v'lo yeh od hamayim lemabul l'shachet kol basar. The water will no longer be as a mabul l'shachet, to destroy kol basar. V'ayta keshet ba'anan, the rainbow shall be in the cloud, uritia, and I will see it, lizkor brit olam, to remember this eternal covenant, bein Elokim, uvein kol nefesh chaya, b'chol basar asher al haaretz, between God, between every living creature among all flesh which is on the earth. So, certainly at simple glance, the Torah is saying that there is a new phenomenon. That new phenomenon is the rainbow. What purpose does it show? The purpose is that when I was about to bring destruction, that is the sign that I will not bring destruction, because of this promise, this guarantee that I made to Noach and all those who would follow afterwards, and after the time of Noach. So there are three aspects that I'd like to study with you today, my friends. Number one, that I brought up before, how does this fit with our scientific understanding, meteorological understanding of what brings about a rainbow? Also, I'd like to discuss why was this chosen as the sign? Why is this, and how is this a sign that there will not be destruction? And lastly, to go into the halacha, because there is a halacha about a bracha, a blessing that is made when one sees a rainbow, and there are different views. Should it be hush hush, because you don't want to be the bearer of bad news, because the rainbow is an indication that destruction should have, would have, could have been brought? Or do we say that no, there is no reason to be hesitant to share with others the vision that one can see, the appearance, I should say, of a rainbow? Okay. First, the first thing we'll go through, though, is a piece of the Gemara, the Torah Shabbal Peh. The Gemara says, Machriz Eliyahu. Eliyahu announced, Kamei, before him, as this individual, soon seen in a moment, had died and was making his way to his place in heaven. Penu makom lebar liyuai. Penu makom lebar liyuai. Make room for Bar Yochai. This is the great Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who is credited with all of the Kabbalah that we have of the Zohar, mentioned throughout the Talmud, buried in Meron. Lag BaOmer is a national holiday in Israel, and hundreds of thousands travel to Meron. Last year, there was a tragedy that took place there with one of the part of the area caving in. He announced, make room for Bar Yochai. Make room for Bar Yochai. Azal, he went. Ashkechei, and he encountered Shim Bar Yochai, Davi Yativ, who was sitting al Tlat Asar, right? Aramaic to Hebrew, Tlat, Taf becomes a Shin, Tlat just became Shalosh. Shalosh Asar, 13, Tachteke Pisa, on 13 stools of gold. Amar Le, and he said to him, At hu bar liuai? Eliyahu said to him, are you the famous Bar Yochai? Amar Le, hey. He answered, yes, that is I. Eliyahu asked, Nirata keshet biyamecha? Was a rainbow ever seen in your days? Amar Le, hey. He said, yes. Eliyahu said in Cain, if that's the case, Iyata bar liuai, you must not be the son of Levi, this Bar Yochai. Why is that? Because in your merit, you were such a kadosh v'tahor, such a holy, pure person who brought protection to your entire generation. So that they never would have reached that point of that near destruction, that there would be this appearance of a rainbow to show they were on the verge, but it's not going to happen. Velohi, the Gemara says. Delo havai midi. And it was not so, meaning, in fact, there never had been the appearance of a rainbow in the lifetime of Shemei Yochai. So why did he say that there was? Savar lo achzik tivuta lenafshai. He didn't want to take this tova, this credit for himself, that, oh, in my lifetime, I was so great that there never was a rainbow. And therefore he demurred. No, I'm sure there were some rainbows in my lifetime. But in fact, there weren't. Okay, so let's get started over here. How do we make this fit with our advanced scientific meteorological understandings of rainbows? So as I said, there are a number of classic approaches. I'll share with you inside the Ibn Ezra and the Ramban, but I'll also show you how in the wording itself you can see that there are different approaches. The Ibn Ezra says as follows, the second paragraph, V'nirata hakeshet. He writes, Ilu hayinu ma'aminim, if we are to believe, b'divrei chachmei Yavan, if we are to believe the words of the Greek wise men, the scientists of our day, the Chachmei Yavan, the wise men of Greece, Shemelahat Hashemesh, that it's from the rays of the sun, Tulad Hakeshet, that is from what this appearance of the rainbow comes. Yesh lomar, we can say, Ki Hashem chizek or Hashemesh achar hamabul. One way of looking at it is that after the flood, there was this change in the strength of the rays of the sun. Perhaps, right, the ozone layer, who knows? There was a strengthening of the rays of the sun. And that is why that which science says, the rays of the sun are what causes the appearance of rainbows, yes, that came about only after the flood, with this change in the science, change in the environment, a strengthening of the rays of the sun. Now, there's often rains, but it doesn't always appear, or we don't always see it. So therefore, that is the sign, and we see it, that sign appears, meaning all of those conditions are met that lead to the appearance of the rainbow when Hashem is trying or wanting to send that message to us. So the Ibn Ezra says this is a new phenomenon. Ramban has a different approach. And he's going to show from the wording of the pasuk itself the support for his approach. Remember, Ramban, Rashi will always start with like the classic, what's bothering Rashi? Something is bothering him in the simple pshat, but then he often veers off into medrash in order to explain it. Ramban sticks very close to the pshat, both in his questions and in his answers, staying very close to the text. And the Ramban says as follows, we have it on our screen. Vanachnu al korcheinu na'amin. He says, we were forced to believe l'divrei hayavanim. We're forced to believe the words of the Greek scientists, meaning they're right. It's true. It's been demonstrated. Shemilahat hashemesh ba'avir halach, that from the rays of the sun in a moist atmosphere, that is what leads to the appearance of the rainbow. Why are we forced to say that? Because we see it with our own eyes. If you have a transparent vessel sitting in the sun, you'll see as the rays of the sun go through that water in this transparent vessel, you'll see Kamareha Keshet. You'll see a rainbow-like appearance. The kasher nistakel od b'lashon hakatuv. Even more so, when we look carefully into the words of the verses, Navin Kain will understand that. Ki amar, because the verse says, et kachti natati be'anan. Looking back up over here to verse 13, the second verse, et kashti natati be'anan. My rainbow, I underlined it in the English, I have placed in the cloud, which indicates past tense. It didn't say ani notain be'anan, that I will now place in the clouds. Kasher amar, as he said, zot ota brit asher ani notain. Right, the first pasuk said, this is 12, and God said, this is on the covenant which I am placing. Present tense, by the sign of the covenant. Verse 13, kashti natati, I have placed. That is past tense. Umilat kashti, and from the word my rainbow, it was an already existing phenomenon from the beginning. And therefore, there is absolutely no contradiction between the science knowledge of that day and the Torah. Nifaresh HaKatuv will explain the verse as saying, HaKeshet, that rainbow, Asher Natati Be'anan, that I had placed in the clouds, Miyom HaBriya, not like the Ibn Ezra, that it's now a new phenomenon based on a strengthening of the rays of the sun. No, that's not what the verse is saying, Ramban says. Look at the words of the verse. That rainbow that I placed into the clouds, Miyom HaBriya, from the time of creation, Tiyeh min hayom hazeh v'hala la'ot brit. That will be from now going forward. It will not just be this haphazard appearance or non-appearance. No, when will those factors be set in motion to bring about the appearance? It'll be an ot brit, a sign of the covenant between me and you. To remember that covenant of peace between us, between me and you, Hashem says.
Rabbi,
Yes.
and I'd like to, before you go forward, I'd like to understand, when Hashem created the world, he created potential. So things didn't necessarily appear, but they had the potential to appear. So when he created the world, he created the potential of the possibility of a rainbow, and then it appeared, but not necessarily at the time of creation. It appeared at the time of Noah. Is that correct? Am I understanding it?
That's not Ramban. That would be closer to Evan Ezra. At the time of creation, he created the potential that he would strengthen the rays of the sun and rainbows would then appear. And that only took place after the flood. That is the Evan Ezra's approach. The Ramban, looking at the wording of the pasuk and the difference. Once again, look up above. This is the sign of the covenant which I am placing. My rainbow I have placed. By the covenant Asher Ani Notain, which I am placing. By the rainbow Natati, that I have placed. So Ramban understands the pasuk is saying, the psukim are saying as follows: I placed the rainbow. The rainbow was always there. The rainbow, since the time of creation, there was this phenomenon of the appearance of the rainbows. But now it's becoming a sign. Meaning, whereas beforehand it might have been haphazard, when it would appear, when it would not appear, now it's coming specifically as a sign about this covenant that I am making. It was always there. That's Natati. I've placed in the cloud. It's been there since creation. But now, at the time of Noah leaving the ark after the flood, that is when it has now become a sign. Now, there are those also, go back up to the psukim if we can. There are those who have also looked very carefully at the pasuk. The first verse says, this is the Ota Brit. This is a sign of the covenant that I'm placing between me and you and all the animals. At Kashti Natati Banan, verse 13, my rainbow I've placed in the clouds, La'ot Brit, Beini Vein Haaretz. Meaning that there are those that learn there's the regular rainbow, which is part of the Brit, the covenant that at the time of creation between me and the land. And then this is a different type of rainbow. And that is not the standard rainbow, a special sort of rainbow, which has its message of the covenant. That's another way of looking at it. The Shlah HaKodesh has a very interesting approach. We say in the Shema that Hashem, if we're doing the right things, Hashem will send the rains in its time. What is in its time? So Rashi there brings one of the explanations. In its time is at night. During the day, the rain could be a very big inconvenience. It can be very, very difficult. I remember when we first moved to California, and they were expecting the first rain, and people would gather. This when Ralph's was still open down Michelson. People would gather in front of Ralph's, checking out water bottles. It was to my wife and I. It was so funny because it reminded us on the East Coast when they're expecting a blizzard, a storm. Winter storm watch in effect. Then you go and buy up some provisions because you might get, snowed into your house and not be able to get out to the grocery store. But over here, because of rain, to us, it was a bit over the top how Californians were so worried about the rain and preparing for the rain. But certainly it is a big inconvenience. When it rains at night, What a blessing. I could turn off my sprinklers. I don't need to go around watering my plants, my fields. And I wake up in the morning, all the work's been done for me, and now I have a beautiful sunny day. Now, how many of you, by show of hands, have seen rainbows? How many of you have seen rainbows at night? That's what I thought. That's what the Shla Kodesh says. He says of Hashem Rabbeinu Moshe Isulis, who is the Ramah, who writes his gloss on the Shulchan Aruch. Shamati Sha'amar, I heard that he said, Avshav Keshet Hi Beteva, even though of course rainbows are natural, Lo Yanira Keshet Im Hayu Zakayin. If we were truly worthy, we would never see rainbows. Why? Ki efshar lefi hateva hakeshet ela kishiyared hamatar biyom. Rainbows are only visible when it rains during the day, and hacham zorachat, and the sun is shining through. V'ilu hayu zakain. If we were meritorious, lo yared hamatar biyom. The rain would not come down during the day, causing that havoc and that at least inconvenience. Ela b'layla. When would it rain? B'shash b'nei adam b'beitam. When people are in their house. Kamo b'leilei Shabbat, on a Friday night, where everyone is home. Kamo shekatav Rashi, like Rashi said on the pasuk, b'natati, the pasuk from Shema, b'natati gishmeichem b'itam. I'll give the rains in its time. And that is what the Zeh Sha'amalei l'Reshua ben Levi nir'ata keshet biyamecha. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I said it was Yisroel ben Levi who was coming there, and they saw Shimon ben Yochai. So Yisroel ben Levi, that's what they said to him. Nir'ata keshet biyamecha. This is classic. The English, the Hebrew said, "Have you seen keshet biyamecha?" Which the English translated loosely, has a rainbow ever appeared in your lifetime? But actually, the word is not in your lifetime. It didn't say bichayecha. It said biyamecha, in your days. So the Shla says, what was he saying? Has it ever rained during the day? Has you seen the rain biyamecha? Teva biyamecha yamim, days, v'lo leilot, and not nights. Klomar, im yarada matar biyom biyamecha, v'az yitreha keshet. Has it ever rained during the day in your lifetime? In which case the rainbow would have been seen. So we have the Evan Ezra that Chaya Rivka ascribed to, that there was a change in the science and the strength of the sun, and that led to there now being this new scientific phenomenon of the appearance of rainbows. Ramban showed from the psukim that no, rainbows were always there, but now it became the sign of the covenant. Like I said before, when we were discussing the teaching from Rabbi Sachs, that science will tell us what and how, but Torah will tell us why and when. Okay? And then we have the Shla quoting the Ramah, that the idea is that if, of course it's scientific, but if it rains at night, we don't get to see it. We don't see it. It's only through the rays of the sun that it's seen. And the bracha, when we are meritorious, is that it's raining at night, not during the day. So therefore, the rainbow is that we're not so meritorious. And that's why it's raining during the day, and that's when rainbows are visible. And that lets us know that we're not so meritorious, and who knows, it could even be the covenant that is preventing the world from destruction. Why? Let's go to part 2. Why a rainbow? What does a rainbow represent? And here we have the Chizkuni, one of the classic commentators on the Torah, and he offers 3 approaches. Et kashti, he writes, ot gadolhu, this is a great sign. Sharehu demote, because the rainbow, there are certain things that we see that we feel are just spiritual. Like there's, when you have the rain, the sun bursting out, sending shafts of light through the clouds, and there are these shafts of light. I, as a kid, always look up and then say, "Oh, that's God." There are certain things that we just see as being just so overwhelming and so otherworldly. And he says that's what a rainbow is. He says that is dimuti, so to speak, God saying, that is my appearance. Kidichtiv, as it says, kamar ha'keshet, like the appearance of the rainbow. Kain mared dimut kvod Hashem, that is the appearance of the appearance of the appearance of the honor of Hashem. V'imdati la'ashchit, and if my dat was to bring destruction, kishagishamim merubim, when there is much rain, ein ani mara lechem demut kvodi, I would not show my appearance. She'ein derech lamelech lavo bein avadav kishehem nizufim mimenu. It's not the way for a king to appear amongst his populace when he is in anger with them. So according to this first pshat, this first approach, it's almost the sign that there will not be destruction. Because I'm here, I'm showing my presence to you. Davar acher, another approach, manishtanit keshet. What is unique about this rainbow? Shetinatein ot lo'olam yoter mishar otot, that is the sign more than any other signs. Ad lefisha keshet mar'eh eish, mar'eh mayim, mar'eh adom, mar'eh yarok. The rainbow has the appearance, has the red, which is fire, and it has blue, which is the water. And even though they are in close proximity, one does not extinguish the other. There is this not unity, but there is this peaceful coexistence, this harmony. That so too the rainbow is, that the water will not go past its boundary, and that there will exist this beautiful harmony of existence in the world. Davar acher, another approach, kishakeshet nira hapegima bitzad mata zed derech shalom. We call it the rainbow, right? Think of a bow and arrow. So if I'm looking to attack, then what part of the bow do you see? You see the front part of the bow pointing at you. If I turn my bow the other way, that it's pointing away from you, that you see that semicircle, that bow, that is a sign of peace. Right? When we shake hands and when we wave, so I believe sociologists say, where did that come from? That it's a sign of peace. I'm shaking my right hand with your right hand. What does that show? No weaponry. Or I give a wave. What does that show? No weapons. Right? I'm not armed. You don't have to worry. Clean hands over here. You don't have to be afraid. No weaponry. The bow, with the bow pointing towards the heavens, but the concave part showing us, that is what a person, if he had a bow and arrow, if I want to show I'm not going to shoot, what do? I would turn it around so that it's facing that way, and you see the bow. When they want to shoot, then the opening is facing me, and the bow part is facing my enemies. And here it's reversed. Here the opening is towards us. Right? So it's as if Hashem is saying, I am not going to shoot. I'm not going to shoot. Now I mentioned that there is a bracha. I'm reading to you now from Shulchan Aruch. Haroa hakeshet. I have it for you over there in English on the sheet. Haroa hakeshet. One sees a rainbow. Omer, he says, Baruch atah Hashem. Blessed are you, Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, our God, the King of the universe. Zocher habrit. You remember the Brit, the covenant? Ne'eman bivrito. You are trusted, faithful to that covenant. V'kayam b'mamaro. And it's fulfilled through your words. V'asur listakel bo biyoter, the Shulchan Aruch says. And one should not look at it too much, should not focus on it too much. For when one sees that, one makes a blessing. That is the Halacha in Shulchan Aruch. And I mentioned before, there are two different approaches to this. One approach the Mishnah Berurah brings from the Chaye Adam, who says, Ein kedai la'agid l'chaveru sheyesh keshet. It's not kedai. It's not preferred. It's not worth it. It's not preferred to tell someone else, oh, there's a rainbow, come see the rainbow. Because motzi diba, it's as if you're speaking badly against others. Meaning, you're spreading the word that we are at such a low state that we are ready for annihilation, but God promised he wouldn't. That is one approach. Another approach I have over here for us. Haminad pashut po, the custom that has spread here, the chol mishro akeshet, that when you see a rainbow, and I think this is also our reaction, that when we see a rainbow, it's incredible, it's beautiful, it's otherworldly, it's dumuto yitbarach, it's like the appearance of this godly appearance. So we tell people, oh, you have to go outside and see. It's so beautiful. Look at the rainbow. He tells his friend or his friends, come see it. Come, you can make the bracha. You can make the blessing. And that which is quoted in the name of the Chaye Adam. You should not tell your friend about the rainbow because you are speaking badly about others. You're spreading bad words about others, so to speak, or bad a bad accounting of others. Lania daiti, according to me, it seems enonir. I disagree. The adrab, on the contrary, anachnu smeichim. We are happy. V'notnin todah bracha Hashem, and we give thanks and blessings to Hashem. Asher b'chasto, that through His kindness, karata brit azot, that He made this covenant. Shlo lashchit et olamo od, not to bring any destruction. V'chein dat rabbeinu b'gemara b'poskim v'dat rishonim shetiknu bracha zu. They establish a bracha. They establish a blessing to be made over this. Va'od, and furthermore, the adro, on the contrary, tvei adif la'agil zulato. It's a positive thing to tell others. That'll be a cause of people to draw closer to Hashem, to return to Hashem. Kibirotam kazot yakir viduki alam kulub matzav kasher v'nora. When they see that, they realize the world is in a dangerous predicament. Lulei rachamav, the chasadav, were it not for His compassion and His kindness. Lachein, and therefore, lani adaiti yafen nagu po lagid. Therefore, He validates the custom of His place, which I think, for the most part, is the custom of our place also, that we do spread the word. But instead of just saying, wow, what a beautiful natural thing, it should bring us to be in awe of Hashem's creation and in awe of Hashem's kindness. Just one last point that I want to touch upon, and it's a very important point. that really gets to the crux of a lot of these seeming contradictions between Torah and science. And that is, there is no contradiction between Torah and science. Meaning, if science is taking the evidence that we have before us and working our way back and understanding the world, understanding what led to that. Torah means instructions, teachings. It is Hashem sharing with us that very same information. When there seems to be a contradiction, one possibility is that science has not yet gotten it right. An example I like to bring is when I was in high school. So what I was taught I was in Yeshiva high school, but in my secular classes, we were taught, and the science teacher said, I'm not telling you what your rabbis are telling you. I'm telling you what science tells you. And that was the constant state theory, that the world had always existed. And Rambam, Maimonides, in his Mor Nevuchim Guide to the Perplexed, brings that as the Aristotle's view, that the world always existed. Science, right? So science disagreed with the very first word of the Torah. First two words, Bereshit bara. In the beginning, created. There was no created. It's always been here. Science progressed, physics progressed, the Big Bang, and now science understands, as one person wrote somewhat tongue-in-cheek, they climbed that scaffold to reach the dizzying heights of science, and they realized that the creationist was sitting right there all along. And Big Bang says there was a moment, a point of creation. So now they agree, Bereshit, but they have problems with bara Elokim, with a God being involved. But there has been, in my lifetime, this incredible movement from constant state to there being creation. Fundamentally, science, when it's done right, and Torah, when it's learned properly, will always be fully aligned. And there are issues, dinosaurs, and we've had class on that, we can have a class again, how Rabbanim were thrilled when they found dinosaurs. All of a sudden, the Midrashim that talks about this world going through different stages and different types of creations, and it was destroyed, and then then we have our present iteration of the world. All of a sudden, those Midrashim were being exhumed from the ground in fossilized forms. Age of the universe also. There are different approaches that we have. According to science, the universe is 14, 15, 16 billion years old, not 57, 82. And there are different approaches. They will always line up. Rambam, Maimonides, in his Mor Nevuchim, Book 2, Chapter 25, says an incredible thing. He says Aristotle has it wrong, thinking the world always existed. And we know from the psukim, from the verses, that there was a point of creation. But he says something incredible. He then says, if science will prove him to be right, then we'll need to recognize that the Torah was speaking in a mashal, in a parable form, as it does elsewhere. When it says that God stretched his arm out over the Egyptians, we know it doesn't mean God stretched his arm out, it means he showed his force. So he said, just like there are other places where we understand that it is a parable in order to make us understand it, He said, then we would have to reinterpret Bereshit into such a parable form. But he says, but it's not so. Science, and then he goes on to prove from science, this is the 11th century science, that the world must have had a beginning. And of course, science today in the 20th and 21st century has proven that to be the case. Like Rambam, not like Aristotle. However, that concept that he says is a very, very powerful, startling concept. And that's why I say science and Torah will always match. As long as the science is accurate and science is forever fine-tuning, and our understanding of Torah is accurate, then the two will always coincide. If they're not coinciding, it's either science has it wrong or our understanding of Torah is wrong, and that is what is leading to this mismatch, to this divergence of views. Okay, what I said before from Rabbi Sachs is very, very important. Science is what and how. Torah is why and when. When will Hashem put those factors into play? And why is he putting those factors into play? Science is within this world. Torah, monotheism, Hashem, is beyond the world. We say Hashem is the makomo shel olam. God is the place of the world. The world is not the place where God is. God is the place where the world is. Science is within this world. Torah, Hashem, is beyond, encompassing throughout. Rabbi David Foreman gives a great example. I shared this with another class. I forgot which one it was. Maybe it was the Tuesday morning class. Thinking along monopoly terms, shoe says to iron, do you believe in Parker? Do you believe in Parker? I've gone around the board. I've passed go, collected 200, Mediterranean Avenue. I've been to Park Place. I even built hotels on Boardwalk, right? I've never seen Parker. Do you believe in Parker? They are within the monopoly game. Parker is the creator. Parker Brothers is the creator of the game. It's like the fish in the fish tank debating what is going on outside of that fish tank, but they're in the fish tank. That is the difference, my friends. Okay, that's what applies to rainbows. That's what applies to all of those issues that come up where science and Torah seem to be a mismatch. Okay, my friends. Yes,
I just want to mention that I've seen a lot of rainbows in my lifetime, but the most spectacular rainbows I've ever seen, I saw two in Hawaii, going towards the airport, going home. The rainbow was so big, it just covered buildings. It wasn't, you saw the gigantic rainbow, and you saw buildings, and it was amazing. And then I saw from our hotel, the one from the hotel I saw first, of course, the same idea, that the rainbow was so big that you actually almost saw like a city, and the rainbow was over the city. It wasn't just a small one like you might see where I, live in Irvine or something. Unbelievable.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Rabbi,
Yes.
For non-Jews, would the standard that they're held to, that Hashem is judging, and would that factor in for people who follow or don't follow Noahide laws? Is that also when Hashem would be saying, okay, you need a reminder? I mean, for others who follow
This was a sign that was given to Noach and to all the B'nai Noach, right? There's no halacha that applies to them in terms of making a blessing, but this was a brit, a covenant, not between God and the Jewish people, between God and the world.
So for us, if we're following Torah, but for others, if they're following the Noachide laws, if enough aren't in either of those categories, that might be why a rainbow would appear.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, how come if for those who follow Noachide laws, how come it's not incumbent upon them to say the blessing as well?
They don't make blessings. They don't have any blessings.
Okay.
Yeah. The Torah doesn't say to make a blessing, right? The rabbis of the Jewish people established a blessing on it. The Torah says it is an oath, it is a sign. Okay? Okay, everybody, let me wish you all a good day and a Shabbat Shalom, and hope we'll get to see you over Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi, and everyone. Have a good day. Good Shabbos.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.